you get to listen to a very, very, very interesting show. Uh, uh, that is that grapevine outro. 1, 2, 3. All right. Excuse me. What's up? Oh, Baldwin owns the movie. Oh, Taya, thank you. I didn't see that in time. Oh well. What are you looking for? What are you looking at? Are you just reading through them? I'm confused.
I just, you can chat.
Ah, okay. Oh, Lagos talks. This will be an interesting one. All right, and anybody who wants to send a message in, all you need to do is leave your message up on this live stream. I'll be able to read it out for you on the show.
Is it on YouTube?
Mm-hmm. What? She said it was on YouTube now. No? Ah.
That's not my plan. I want people of Nigeria to see me.
Mhm. All right, studio. Well, Lagos, here we are. It is gone past 9 o'clock. We are in that hour, which means it's time for Lagos Talks on Smooth Breakfast. I'm Shopper Martins, and joining me for today's conversation, which is a very interesting one, as we bring the education sector under review, I have got Wade Ahimi, who is the co-founder of Heways Communication Studios, which is a hub for fulfilling the potentials of the creative industry, and also he's the author of the book Crapify. Crapifart, Perspective for an Emerging Market, which deals with challenges faced by emerging markets and businesses in corporate governance, risk management, and compliance. You've got a pretty vested interest in the education sector, as we know it right now. So, Wade, thank you very much for joining me for
Good,
today's
good morning,
Lagos Talk.
Shopper. Good morning, Lagos. It's great to be here on Lagos Talks again. It's been a while.
Yeah, it actually not that long actually, but yes, the last time you were here, it was a pretty fiery conversation
Yes, it
from
was.
what I can remember. Now, this one is going to be really interesting because we also get to hear from the Lagos State Commissioner for Education, as we had an off-air interview with her that we are going to be playing you snippets from as she answers some questions that we have, and hopefully, answers questions that you have as well. Now, of course, that is Folashade Adefisayo, like I said, the Lagos State Commissioner for Education, and we'll also be hearing from Abiola Balogun, who's a former principal in Lagos State, on what the education system was like in the past. So, like I said, it's a very interesting conversation, lots and lots of parties involved, and of course, you can join this conversation. We are streaming live up on youtube.com// smooth 981 FM Lagos. We are also taking your messages, so you can leave your comments on the live stream, by the way. We are also taking your messages on WhatsApp. The number for that is 0809 440 981. And we have the hashtag Lagos Talks 981 up on Twitter. So join that conversation on that platform using that hashtag. So, Wade, first things first, let's take a look at this because we've got the whole of the education sector under review right now. But one thing that has come up in the conversations that I've been having here on in the studio on Freshly Pressed on Lagos Talks is the role of education in the economy when it comes to a nation's economy. So, in your opinion, what roles do you think education plays, or what role do you think education plays in the performance of the nation's economy?
Oh, well, it plays a very, very significant role to economic development because the basics of understanding how to read, how to write, comes from education. If you can read and write in whatever language, as long as you can understand what is written
Mm-hmm.
and you can better understand what you read, then it plays a huge, huge. It's this it becomes a significant factor in how you develop the economy. So one thing you should also remember is that even as we go on from basic education to university and then get into work, one of the things you continue to hear is how much are you developing yourself? Okay, how much are you developing yourself? How much are you getting developed? Training, learning and development and a number of those things. So a, a an economy that doesn't develop its human capital at the end of the day, how do you create new ideas? How do you ensure that people who create ideas have the people who can help them execute those ideas and implement those ideas? We should always remember, and I'm not trying to say that people can become successful, but there are different ways to become successful. Some will become owners of businesses, some will become leaders of businesses owned by other people.
And even
And
just the basic workforce,
yes,
right?
so the basics are ensure you have a proper education that makes you understand across board and continually develop yourself towards providing, whether it's creating a good or providing a service towards economic development.
Right, because one thing Nigeria is known for is its population size.
Exactly.
Yes, but what happens if the population is not educated? What happens if, this is one thing people talk about, they say you can have population size, but if the population size isn't working for you when it comes to economic development, when it comes to being able to be put into different jobs, no matter which sector, then that becomes a
then you
disadvantage.
have a huge problem, and that's one of the biggest challenges we see today in Nigeria. Um, it's not about getting educated and getting your skills. It's not about you setting up a business alone. It's also about providing your skills to businesses to improve the economic development across board. So when people would say, oh, it's not, they don't have an entrepreneurial mindset, or some people are not meant to have entrepreneurial mindsets. Some people are meant to have a process mindset to make the organization work according to how the processes should be. So when you think about it from that perspective and you look at what the common narration is the 80-20 rule. 80, usually 80% of people in any economy usually are the workforce, while
Right.
20% of people within, that's including government, are those who provide the employment opportunities for the employees.
All right, now we're going to hear from the Lagos State Commissioner for Education, Folashade Adefisayo, right on this topic, which is the role of education in the performance of the economy. And then we'll be back. Do remember you can call up on 014489 and 981.
Very difficult to even measure the depth and the breadth of education and its impact on society, whether it's the economy or the social position in the country. So it's huge, in other words.
Okay, and there you go. So she talks about how education is a pretty vital when it comes to the performance of an economy. Now, Wade, let's take a look at this. Considering how the economy is developing in spheres like tech and how we're trying to achieve that kind of more developed technological science, technology, innovation aspect. What are some of the plans that you would like to see from the Ministry of Education to that goes into impacting that sort of economy?
So first and foremost, you want to have, for me, have basic education. When I say basic education, primary, secondary school level, to a large extent, to be free, and free in the sense that you're able to not just pay your tuition or free for tuition, but free to have the basic resources to develop the minds of our young people.
Mm.
I remember growing up, and it was in this Lagos where there was free education. That was between October 1, 1979 and December 31, 1983.
Mm-hmm.
And free education was not just about tuition. It was about everybody who came into school in Lagos from the very first year you entered into a Lagos State school had books. Now, when you have those things, self-development becomes easier. You're not waiting for someone else before you get a book to read. It's available. And then you create the kind of partnerships that would help create economic value across whether it's printing or publishing of those books and so on. So when you think about it, these are the kind of plans I should be seeing today with technology. Who are you partnering with to provide the necessary resources for people to self-develop? Because when you're not in school or you're outside school, if I don't have anything to further read to develop myself, I'm just as good as what is taught to me in school.
All right. Well, we've got to take a very quick break, but we will be back and we'll be hearing more from the Lagos State Commissioner for Education right here. This is Lagos Talks on Smooth Breakfast. I'm Shopper Martins. I'll be with you right after this.
98.1. When opportunity knocks, doing answers. It rolls up its sleeves and gets
Oh,
down to
okay.
business.
You guys heard it because we heard it. We turned up the volume for
So
you.
what point, where are you?
Nothing gets done
Going into question two.
without someone doing. So, what are we doing today?
Our producer is my producer is looking at me funny, people. But it's a very interesting conversation, though. Very, very interesting.
Why can't I find a fine girl that's both studying and hungry? Then I wanted to compare house with the people I choose. They started giving me options
Question number
again.
two.
Resources.
But why? Why do I have to choose? If I make smart choices, why can't I have it all?
Yes, you can have it all with a smart choice like Santex Paints. You can have everything you want. High quality paint that
discussed.
is long lasting and affordable. Insist on value. Insist on Santex Paint for smart choice.
Yeah, so that's
It's
fine.
all right now.
Let's speak it.
No, don't be talking
No, no,
about
no,
it.
no,
It's
no.
fine.
You ask about what do you want me to see, and I've said some of those things. So if they've addressed it in future, it means that they are looking at also those things and how they can.
You know, that's the thing about live conversations. They range, man. They range. So I think I will play what she has to say on question number two about considering how the economy is developing in spheres like tech. Oh, it's 3 minutes and 11 seconds. Cool.
That's good.
Cool, cool, cool. My producer is giving me the funny look again, people. I'm reporting you to the audience.
What did I do?
She gave me a funny look.
Whatever. Bye.
Goodbye. So we've got time, people. 3 minutes.
When does it end? 9:50.
I just left the house.
10 o'clock. Watch it 9:50. Yeah.
My friend that came.
Timmy? Yeah, I was telling you, but you actually had your headphones on during Fresh to Fresh. Yeah, so she came in.
Well, let me talk about our plan because it's not just technology. There's some students that are not technologically inclined. And so you
Can
just
you
get
hear?
to accept that you have to make what my own objective now is to ensure that every child is going to reach their full potential. And that is why we are introducing a concept that we have called comprehensive schools.
We'll get to talk
We
about
not even talk about the comprehensive schools. We already have 5 technical colleges in the state where we run over community courses on which have technology in mind, ranging from welding and so on to actual app development and coding and so on. And now we want to expand this to as many schools as possible, and that's why we now have we are setting up what we call comprehensive schools, where there's an alternative career path where a child can actually learn to do work related skills.
Which I like.
For example,
No, I'm just talking to YouTube. Not everything needs to be down the academic path.
Major career areas, ranging from agri to technology to events and management to photography and video, building and construction. It's just a pilot. We are going to go way beyond that and started working on the next stage. But and in this class, we will teach students what related skills so that we know that every child something with which they can make a living, and something that is in line with 21st century work-related reality. And so those are some of our plans for ensuring that every student leaves us with something tangible that can support their future career options.
What are you doing in terms of promoting this vocational training for students, especially with maybe some parents who are not even keen on their children doing vocational training?
Well, we've been going around doing a lot of community engagement. For the 12 schools, for example, it's a pilot. So we are looking at how we can, that's where we make our mistakes. That's where we see what was good in what we planned and all. So what we've done is that we've met communities, the authors, the chiefs, the community leaders, parents, the students themselves, and we told them that you leave school with a skill. Even if you do go to university, even if you don't go, you will still have something with which you can make a good living for yourself and for your family. So we've been going around and talking about this. We've been going on TV, we've been doing a lot on social media, and so just sensitizing people about what we're doing. People are asking a lot of questions. So I think that elicits responses and make it clearer.
12 public schools, right?
Yes, I've set up some meetings with some private schools to take them through what we're doing and see would they be interested? Would we be able to work together? Would they need our support? Would we need their support? And so on and so forth.
All right, Lagos, 16 minutes gone past 9 o'clock, and you were just listening to the Lagos State Commissioner for Education, Folashade Adefisayo, as we take a look at the education sector and put it under review. Now, she was speaking to the question of this, which is considering how the economy is developing in spheres like tech and such, what were some of the plans of the Ministry of Education for the future to impact the economy? With a follow-up question from my producer. Now, she talked about the Lagos State kicking off this comprehensive school program, which is in its pilot phase right now. So, what do you think about this development?
I when you consider how the educational system has been across over time in Nigeria, for me this is the commissioner going back to the basics, and which I'm really proud of. We had all of a sudden forgotten the fact that, or neglected, not forgotten, neglected the fact that even if you have to go to university, sometimes you come out and you find out that the skills acquired from high school um, could be very relevant in areas like engineering, motor mechanics. So you could go read mechanical engineering or civil engineering and come back to bring those things into forbearance when even if you don't have paid employment. So you could create things from there. And this for me is good news. They're starting with she mentioned about 12 schools. Um, um, with the curriculum and all. So for me, it's like I said earlier, and I'm sure probably she would also address it as we go on, is the education needs to be free for this level. There needs to be huge investment in capital investment in the infrastructure required for this. The idea of having to work with private education practitioners is is um, is really one that appeals to me because now not only are you looking at the state schools, you're also looking at the private schools, and if you have um, places and infrastructure areas and development where these things can be done, it can also create some level of funding into continually building these places. So it's more like having technology areas where you students in higher school, secondary school can go learn and get better value for handwork. So even if you decide to go to university, it's easy for you to understand as an architect why you need to design things to structure based on the thickness of the linings and all.
Right.
And the good thing about it is some countries in Europe do practice this kind of educational system and even have to the extent of writing certificate examinations in this manner. So you write your general certificate examination, and then you write a special certificate examination that has to do with um, um, handwork. Doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to go to university. It just means that at the end of the day, you're able to also secure some form of employment even while at school.
Right, because for me, when it comes to education and the economy, I feel like there are two sides of the same coin
Coin.
that feed into each other. Because if we are not preparing our current students for the future vision we have for the economy, then by the time we get to that future and our students have come out of the education system, we're going to have a workforce that is not fit for where it is that the direction it is that we have pivoted into and want to go. Now, I've got another question because something that does come up quite a bit, and especially that we saw when it came to the pandemic and the lockdown and children being out of school due to the how widespread this was, is this issue of distance learning, right? So we my producer asked the Commissioner for Education just exactly how the ministry is building capacity for distance learning. So here we go. This is what she had to say.
Comprehensive, students can use devices for prayers continuously now. Then every video. But what we've done is that we are going to give cellular classes devices in which to work. Should there be any need for them from the school, they will still keep on learning. As for other students, the governor is cabling the whole city, making Lagos a 21st century city. They're catering, so it's going to be wireless internet across the whole state, and people will be able to access through normal devices. And we'll try and use as many solar as possible. The last time we had the lockdown, we taught students on every possible platform, ranging from television, radio, to Telegram, to WhatsApp, to Facebook, and of course we have an online. We have two portals that where we downloaded our curriculum, a lot of videos, teachers, and so we just have a plethora of ways to reach out to them. Should there be any need for them not to come to school?
How soon should we expect this to begin to materialize?
The devices should come in the second quarter of the year. The cabling we are still maybe the cabling we are maybe a year away, but for the cabling, even the cabling, the last mile is going to go into every school, and we have started
All
a
right,
pilot
studio.
of 100 schools.
All right, now we've got a couple of minutes until we need to go on a break. But when we get back, I'll be asking for, in fact, I'm already asking for your thoughts. Send us WhatsApp messages 0809 440 and call us up on 01 What is your opinion on the education system that we currently run within the nation and bringing it home to Lagos? What would you like to see? Do you think it is fit for the purposes of advancing the economy as we have it right now? There are many questions that come up. And also, if you have gone through the education system, how has it served you? How do you think it could be utilized better to serve the next generation of students that we have? Now, Wadi, how going off of what the minister said, how exactly do you perceive the readiness of the state to become a 21st century state, especially when we're looking at this idea of distance learning? You know, I see you smiling. What's your thoughts?
Um, I think COVID caught everyone unawares.
Oh, yes.
It took a bit of time, um, not just in Nigeria, across the world.
Mm-hmm.
We struggled globally um, to provide for um, the children in school. The other thing about distant learning is how do you even ensure that you can monitor what they're learning, and which is which is something that has to be dealt with also, because parents sometimes have to go out. Do you have nannies who are capable to ensure that the kids are disciplined enough to go through that process? But we found out that as as we went on through COVID, more and more children realized and better appreciated the fact that you could do distant learning, started to become a bit more focused. And from what you've heard the commissioner say, I can see that they're preparing the initial shock has been overcome. and they've been able to provide because the last time, the last spike in the pandemic, I remember clearly a lot of adverts from Lagos State Ministry on how your children could get access, whether it was private or public schools, to get access to teaching aids, teachers providing classroom teaching materials that you could have access to, which is great. The other thing for me, which I think, and being the government, is to start looking at the various kinds of partnership you can start to build with the IT communication community. What do I mean by that? Aside from just providing internet access, how do you start building network systems that children can have access to with the likes of the MTNs and the Glows and the
All right, Wadi, I'm gonna have to just put you on pause for a second as we take a break. But remember where you are. We'll be right back. I will be taking your calls. I see the phone lines going right after this. Man, I see you calling person, and I'm gonna pick up that call. But
partnerships are the next thing to go.
mm,
You understand? So you have to start creating partnerships and pushing telecoms to provide that kind of what's it called atmosphere. So the average child or the average parent has a phone. So how can you connect to those things? How can you register? And then they provide
because I
as
know
part of corporate social responsibility, those huge platforms that
I know back when Nine Mobile was Etisalat, they had so many different portals for education as well that they were pushing out. They had apps, they had online portals, they had a lot specifically for
and even when,
children to be able
and
to
then even
access
yeah,
education
and even when it
materials.
comes to the what's it called, the resources itself, the books and all, how do you now start building partnerships with those who own rights to the books to have them on this kind of portals so that you can
Right.
have, because it, it's going to be free. Are you with me? But the minimal amount in terms of data that you require to be able to study and pick up a topic and becomes what parents and children can
Because let's face it, textbooks are expensive. So how do you get that? They are.
I know. So
Okay.
that's why I said they must see.
No, I
It
know.
was done
So
in
it's like,
Lagos.
how do you
So
figure out the
how do you figure
licensing issues for
yeah.
that?
So you as a government, those are the things that Jakonde did it in Lagos. Partnerships with license owners to be able to publish the books, the books, I mean print the books in Nigeria. So it was easy to give out excess textbooks
Oh, okay.
on your first day of school.
Wow.
You got all the textbooks and all the
What
exercise
happened to
books
that?
with the military.
Ah!
I'm not going to say that on there. So don't even push me there. So these are the kind of things. So how do the MTNs of this world use that as part of expenditure on corporate social responsibility of agreeing with, okay, so we can have this. We would pay for the rights over XYZ so that these children can have access to it on this portal. And you're not downloading it. You can go in there and study because it's available. It doesn't matter how many people are on it. So how many rights do you have? So that people can do self-study. People can take their time to, read and prepare themselves when they are not in school. When they are home, you know that you have access. Like you said, books are damn expensive.
So
And in today's
expensive.
world, why are we buying so much textbooks that someone else is not going to use?
Yeah.
Do you understand? So those can cut down on the cost of books if both the private and public sector and the government push in that direction to have standard portals where you can have access to those
And
books.
save some trees, people. Save some
Save some
trees.
trees.
Studio. Here we are, 29 minutes gone past 9 o'clock. The number to dial as we take a look at the education sector and put it under review right here on Lagos Talks on Smooth Breakfast with myself, Shokbe Martins, and my guest for this morning, Wade Ahime, who's the co-founder of Hiways Communication Studios, which is a hub for fulfilling the potentials of the creative industry. And you're also the author of a book that I have a copy of, people, called Crap If Art, which is a perspective for an emerging Emerging Markets, which deals with the challenges faced by emerging markets and businesses in corporate governance, risk management, and compliance. Now, Wade, before we went on our break, oh, I see the phone line going. So remember, you were talking about partnerships. So we'll get back to that right after this call. Hello, good morning.
Hi, Shopper, good morning.
Hello, good morning. Is that Ibukum?
No, this is Ricky.
Oh, Ricky. Hello, good morning, Ricky. So,
Good morning.
yes.
Happy International Women's Day.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy International Women's Day to all of us. Now, Ricky, share your thoughts on what you would like to. In fact, no, I would love to know what angle you're approaching this education sector under review conversation from.
Okay, so I've been a bit advocate for an issue over a couple of years now, and that's that we need to scrap this division of secondary school kids, particularly into the variation of science, art, blah, 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 whatever. So I'm a lawyer. I know absolutely next to nothing about physics, except what I've seen in maybe a movie series like MacGyver or something.
Right. Okay.
And it's not important to me as a person. It's the question we need to ask. Don't I need to know a bit about chemistry? Do I not need to know a bit about, technical drawings and things like that? We all do. So why do we now take away 13-year-olds and deny them that knowledge? Because right from GS3, once you write the junior YF, you're done with science if you go to art. You're done with anything in art if you go to the sciences. I think that's one of the biggest problems that creates deficient adults in Nigeria.
Hmm.
We need to scrap that system. Everybody needs to
Do
learn.
you agree?
We need to write one single exam that takes all of us to university. The way it's done in better, not well, let me not say better, but at least in other climes. One single exam that takes us to university, and then when we do get to university, when we are older, when we are mature, when we know what we want out of life, we can then begin to diversify. We major on the minors, and then we minor on the things that we should major on.
All right then, Ricky.
All the others will fall in line.
Okay, Ricky, thank you very much for calling up and actually putting that angle in because, oh, I think you were nodding along with
yeah.
what he had to say
And I totally agree with him. You need a bit of all. Are you with me? And
to
it
be a
doesn't.
well-rounded individual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like you said, he's a lawyer, but sometimes he has to deal with issues relating to buildings,
Mm.
and it starts from, oh, what's the plan or what's the expectation, and what does the law say in terms of material specifics, and he has to read some of those contracts and be sure that those things are right, because you don't want to come back and say, oh, we just looked at the wordings of the English, and that's all. And with a bit of knowledge of physics, chemistry, maths, you just name it, you have an idea of what you're looking at, and that makes you well-rounded. It also gives you an idea of what are the financial implications of some of the things that you're doing in terms of cost of materials and so on.
Because the world right now is not segregated. In order to be able to interact and understand the
Exactly.
world around you, you
Exactly.
need to know a little bit about the world around you.
True.
Really, that's it. Now, Wade, you were talking about when we are talking about distance learning, right? You were talking about how the the government could partner when it comes to the school system with the private entities, and you had talked about yeah, actually, you talked about telecommunication companies as well,
Yeah.
right?
So one of the biggest challenges for education anywhere in the world
Mm-hmm.
is access to the resources. Um, when you can afford to buy books, sometimes you're as brilliant as the book that you read,
That's
because
one way of looking at it.
yeah,
Yes.
because
Okay.
I might have an idea from what the teacher taught me, but there might be some other examples in the books that I don't see. So if an examination comes out and they tweak something, then it becomes an issue of, oh, but they didn't teach me this. So how do you develop yourself? And growing up, I've seen people who we thought were dullards excel because they had access to books in this Lagos state when there was free education, and that came from when the state government had partnerships with printing houses, with the license owners of some of these textbooks, towards being able to print them locally in Nigeria, paying a, paying some form of compensation for the rights.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the kind of things we should start looking at in terms of partnership. The government can drive that with the telecommunications companies, where you can set out huge portals where some of these activities by the telecoms companies can count as corporate social responsibility towards providing those books. Because if the kids have access to more of this academic books, then it's easier for me to say, okay, I can access it on this portal in XYZ in ABC, and I'm not paying a huge amount. At the end of the day, you're still going to buy data, whether it's MTN or Glo or Airtel, which still brings in money.
Now, when you talk about access to books, I want to go further back, because what about access to the actual uh, institutions, the actual educational institutions? Because we have an out of school children problem here in Lagos, in Nigeria, also in Lagos, because our conservative estimates have put the number of out of school pupils in Lagos to 2 million. However, the commissioner for the commissioner of state for education, Folashade Adefisare, has something to say about that. We'll play you what she had to say, and then we'll come back to talk about it.
According to the 10 million children out of school in the country, roughly 90% are in the northern part of the country. So clearly about a million are suspected to be down south. So I think clearly you can't take 2 million out of 1 million. So it is
That's
not
what she
up to
said.
that. It's still more. Even if one child is out, let me tell you, my own policy is that is still one child too many. So whether it's 1 or 2 million, it's not up to that. I think what we have to we have strategy for these children. So one of the things that we are trying to do is attract them to our schools. We don't pay school fees in our schools. The schools are free. So we continue to work on what we call Project Zero, which is zero tolerance for children out of school, working with Tibet, where they actually go into communities. This is not what we do on radio. So you know here, we not a photo op, we not PR front. This is something where they actually go into communities and ask, why aren't you in school? And many of them are poverty related. I don't have a school bag, I don't have this, I don't have that. So they're working with private organizations, public organizations, individuals who give them all the things so that the students can come to school. So really, if there is Project Hero is up and running and we continue
All right,
working
we're
on
going back in.
Project Hero, which eventually has been able to attract more than 4,000 children in about 3 months.
All right, so Ade, you heard from, we've all heard from the Lagos State Commissioner for Education on that. You can't take 2 million out of 1 million. But seriously speaking, though, I mean,
But like you
she's
said,
made her points, but
one child out of school
exactly what she
is bad
said.
enough. And it brings me back to where we were talking about earlier about partnership
Mm.
and distant learning. You get school doesn't have to always be four walls. It just has to be an understanding of there are four walls where we can be around and learn. So it doesn't have to be enclosed in a house or in a room.
Oh, that's an interesting one.
And what I mean by this is this: you see sometimes there are a number of advertorial boards outside. I know that we shouldn't be under the sun, and I remember my parents telling me sometimes they had to stay under shades to learn when they were growing up to get an education. Um, People complained about Jaconde's infrastructure towards building education, but we saw the mass development of people in Lagos, and a number of recipients today are in key positions across Lagos State. And these are the things that we're talking about. So how do you ensure that these partnerships work, especially from what we spoke about in distance learning?
All right, Wade, I'm going to take a phone call now to see who we have joining the conversation. Hello, what's your name and your location? Oh, looks like that didn't go through. So you can call up again on 0144899981. We've got this message in from Sean who says, we can't all take all courses to senior secondary school. The bit of knowledge up to JSS1 or SS1 level is fine, but you can't have a student that has already shown major aptitude in the creative arts, maybe painting or dancing, sitting and cracking his head over calculus. That defeats the that's actually quite an interesting visual. That defeats the purpose of playing up the students' strengths and developing the same. He goes on to say, by the time I was in SS2, all I was interested in was batteries, how cars could fly and become transparent to avoid detection. Okay, I couldn't even attend classes that delved into any other topics past their definitions. All right, so that's one for streamlining. Okay, all right. Well, we are going to take a very quick break right now. When we get back, more on Lagos talks. Actually, you know what? Yeah, more on Lagos talks right here on Smooth Breakfast.
Love life. Yo, the streets are not smiling. The speed at which everyone is
Plenty
taking
advert on
this
this one.
serious. How am I supposed to be productive
Yes,
when
and
my
I
boss is
feel
always
like
telling
I've
me
done
to slow down?
something. It's quite interesting.
You lack of jive. You need to upgrade your skills to MTN's reliable internet and
Well,
endless learning videos on YouTube.
they are
Just
going
download
to have
Fast
to
and Grow. You get
get
up to
back to
7
me
hours of
on
free
this
TV on
one.
YouTube anytime you buy data plans from MTN. Dial star 131 hash to get started. Everywhere you go, MTN.
I just saw the timings. It's quite interesting. I've done something. Oh well.
You touch something?
I've done something, but it's fine. It's all fine. Don't you worry.
Well, you're the one in charge.
I'm the one in charge, people. I'm the one in charge. So yeah, okay, so we don't have too much time when we come back, and I've realized that. So we're going to skip we've already done number 4 actually. So I think we'll just go straight into number 6. The plan to ensure the educational standard of public schools and private schools. What do you think?
Yeah.
No?
I don't think there's a gap. It's still the same, what's it called? The gap comes from having the availability of those who are going to teach it and
Look what she has to say.
access to the resources.
Have you seen? We are looking at 2 or 300 schools. There are more than 18,000 private schools in Lagos. So for us, there are all sorts of private schools. Then from the elite schools that most of you talk about to the local schools that we have to work with. And so
18,000 public private
what
schools in
we are
Lagos. That's
doing now is
crazy.
providing something called, there was a project some years ago called
People are just collecting
which was
money in
moribund,
Lagos State
and we are
government.
revising it again so that we support the local services to get
So this
better
is
and
what she
better.
had to
And
say
then, of
about
course, we
it.
keep working on our own too. So the gap exists at everywhere. I don't
Because she
think we
started
should
off
think
saying there
that
were no
public schools
gaps.
are the
Then she
effectively
said
worst
gaps do
schools around.
exist.
They definitely are not.
Yeah, there
This
are
year,
gaps, and the
there
gaps
are
are from the
overall
resources.
Mm.
If you don't have books, if you don't have teachers, there's nothing you can do. It's so far you can learn. Shokwe. You and I know that.
Yeah.
And it's becoming more and more expensive to get access to books because books are expensive.
So remove
And a lot
number
of all these
5.
books are not being printed in Nigeria.
Yeah, that is a
And which is
big
why I said you
issue.
must come in together. You must have that partnership.
All right. So I'm going to. We'll come in 5 seconds. All right, so it's 42 minutes gone past 9 o'clock. This is Lagos Talks on Smooth Breakfast. I'm Shokwe Martins, and I have Wade Ahimi in the studio with me as we put the education sector under review. Now, I've also been playing you clips from our interview with the Lagos State Commissioner for Education, Folashade Adefisayo, who's had a lot to say on what the state government is trying to do to push that education boundary as far as they can go. Now, the next question that we put to the state commissioner for education is the issue of ensuring the educational standard of public schools and the gaps in the system that we see between the public and private schools, and what the state government is doing to close the gap. And this is what she had to say about the gaps themselves. More than 18,000 private schools.
And so what we are doing now is reviving something called, there was a project some years ago called System, which was moribund, and we are reviving it again so that we support the local services to get better and better. And then, of course, we keep working on our own schools. So the gap exists at everywhere. I don't think you should think that public schools are necessarily the worst schools around. They definitely are not. This year, our overall WAEC result was 79%. I think schools that can come in 79% are not bad schools. I don't know how you think, but I don't think so.
All right, so that's quite an interesting one. First of all, the number of private schools that apparently exist in the state, that is the huge number. Second of all, it's good to see that our students scoring in that such high percentile. So
They've always been.
well, it's good to know because I didn't know the numbers, so this is quite interesting.
Public schools have always had WAC has always been on the average minimum 60%.
Oh, fantastic!
So yes, there are gaps, and some of the gaps, like I mentioned earlier, comes from having the resources, books, teachers. So you look at it as human and material. So if we're not encouraging our human capital to get give the best to the students, how do you go about it? And then the materials, which is some of the things you said, how do you partner with? Some of these books are not printed in Nigeria. Some of these books are damn expensive. Um,
Morning,
sorry,
morning, morning.
sorry,
Thank
are
you.
really expensive.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry, pardon my French, please. So they're really expensive. So to even get access to those books, so you find out that sometimes books have to be shared. And like we said earlier, if you have books, you have access to self-development. But when you don't have them and you have to share in class, you can only rely on your notes and so on. So we need to create that enabling environment for people to get access to the resources.
All right, let's see what you have to say. 0144899981. Hello, good morning. What's your name and your location?
Newton.
All right, Gary Newton, go ahead. Your thoughts.
Okay. So this thought I have about education, that I don't know why I think your our guest there talked about education not actually necessarily have to be within a four corner wall. Yeah, it's something that I've always had in mind, because if we need to bridge this gap of education, there are people, there are students there out there who don't actually want to be in a school. They need something to learn. So if, to me, I believe the government want to help and bridge this form of education, that we can go out there, meet with the vocational study centers, technical training centers, or where they can learn skills and acquisitions. There are,
Okay.
for example, there are, how would I say, mechanical workshops that are really good at what they're doing. The government can come and say, okay, I know what you're doing is okay. I need to take out some children from the street, and those who are interested in learning mechanical work want to enroll them with you.
All right, then, Gary Newton, thank you so much for contributing to the conversation. And Wade picked up his pen and his paper and pointed towards what he said, which was partnerships, going back to
It's
partnerships
going back to
again.
partnerships.
All right. Now, I'd love to play you something because we heard from the from a former principal in Lagos State, Biola Balogun, who had talked a little bit about the what education was like in the past and what it's like now. Let's hear from her.
My name is Mrs. Biola Balogun, a former principal of a secondary school in Lagos. I worked from as a secondary school principal from the year 2001 to 2006. I attended Kekotun Memorial Nursery and Primary School 70 something to 80. I finished in 80, and I attended Nigerian Premier College. I finished in 1985. The difference between the educational standard of our time and that of this time is number one, discipline. You dare not come to school late. You cannot just wear any shoe to school. You cannot, a lot of things like that. You have your textbooks complete, and there is no way a teacher will come into your class without you having your textbooks, your notebooks copied to date. Then when Jaconde came in, there was a free education whereby we're now provided with all the textbooks. And by the time we're leaving for the next class, the textbooks will be taken from us, where you have destroyed or you have lost any, your parents have to replace them. There is a wide difference between then and now.
quite interesting. And like you had actually mentioned that, which is this idea of not this idea, what it was of providing free textbooks, which is such a fantastic way to not shut out children from the education system, because it is key that they have access to not just the pertinent information, but the pertinent up to date information. Um, yeah, wow. Wouldn't I have loved to be educated in the educational system of old? People
But
also talk about university and free chickens. I remember that much.
I didn't experience that, but
But it was there
what's
at
there
some
before
point.
my time.
You wanted
But
to say?
but like I said earlier, it's all about partnerships. And today we're in the world of technology, artificial technology, where fintechs are building financial systems and so much more. And I know a number of fintechs who are also dealing in the education space. This is what we require. How does the government come into partnerships with those who have the right to the textbooks? How do you provide them in space? You hear the former principal says, "Oh, at the end of every year, you return those books so that the next class could take it." So it's called recycling. But if you have a system that works with um, the government having that huge vast portal of where you can have access, along with even the what's it called, the private schools, then you find out that yeah, you would it would come back to semblance of what we used to have.
All right, now we don't have much time. We've just got a couple of minutes till the end of the show. So I'd like to just play you the commissioner's last words regarding the education sector and what the state government and the education sector. This is Folashade Adefisayo, Lagos State Commissioner for Education, speaking.
I would like to say was, it's not perfection. We are not hit perfection at all. Nobody needs perfection. But I think there's a lot being done. There's a lot being done, and with heart and soul to actually ensure that every child who goes to school in Lagos State, like I said financial gain, that they get something out of it, something that will give them a good living all their life. And so that has been the focus. That is why I rarely comment on many things, because until I don't believe in talking too much, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So let's see, let's watch this space. That's all I can say. Thank you.
All right, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Now, very quickly, Wadi, I want to just touch on this. So, the bill for free compulsory and basic education has been passed. What do you make of this?
So what does the bill entail? I haven't seen the bill, but I'll probably go and look for it. And what does it entail? It's free compulsory and basic education. Does it just involve the tuition, or does it involve creating a system where we would have access to the resources, both human and material, which is fundamental to education?
Mm.
If you don't have the right set of human capital, teaching our students or talking to us the students or counseling our students, then like the former principal said, discipline becomes a huge issue. That's one. And then if you don't have the books that they have to read when they're not in school, when they're at home, when in the middle of the night, when they have access to their phones and internet is free, where they can access these things and read, then would still live in that fantasy world of education being free and still the quality of education not reaching the standard that we want it to be.
All right, and what would you just give us some final words on your thoughts on the education sector?
Without education, we will the the pace of development will be slow, and we've seen it in Nigeria. Unemployment would continually be high, and so on. So, like I said, government has to come back and get back to the basics of funding education in terms of infrastructure and the human capital in terms of our teachers and the resources that are required. Partnerships are becoming huge and very important in education. And how does government create an enabling environment to put those partnerships together, both at federal, state, and local levels?
All right. Claudia Ahimi, thank you so much for joining me for today's Lagos Talks. It has been a pretty enlightening conversation, and taking a look at the past, we can see where we need to be headed for in the future as well. So that was Wade Ahimi, who is the co-founder of Hiways Communication Studios and the author of the book Crappy Fart, Perspective for an Emerging Market, dealing with challenges faced by emerging markets and businesses in corporate governance, risk management, and compliance. Lagos, you, as usual, you have been wonderful. Thank you very much for joining us for this conversation, sharing your thoughts as well. Keep the conversation going. Make sure you tag us. We are at Smooth 981 FM and tag Wadi as well because I know that there were a number of calls that were coming through well, conversation was just kept going. So make sure you tag him up on Twitter. He is at Wadi Ahimi underscore. All right. And that is Lagos Talks. And
Thank you, Chopin, for having me. And
thank
it's
you,
always a
Wadi.
pleasure being here.
It really is. It really is. That's Lagos Talks done, and that's Smooth Breakfast done. Coming up, like once again, Happy International Women's Day, and coming up, you get to have Soul Sisters, which is a 1 hour, and it's got Khadija on it, and we'll be taking a look at pertinent women's issues and just talking about the woman in Nigeria and beyond. That's coming up at 11 o'clock. It is an International Women's Day special right here, brought to you by your Love Music, Love Life station, Smooth 98.1. I'll see you bright and early tomorrow at 6 a.m. Make sure you do not miss out. And of